In 1986, in Okinawa, Japan, a young man trains at a traditional martial arts karate school. If you grew up as a kid in the 80s, you'll probably recognize this guy right away. His name is Daniel LaRusso. Daniel has a karate teacher, Mr. Miyagi. Well, sometimes people joke and call him Mr. Miyabi. Tongue slips happen. At the dojo, Mr. Miyagi talks about his ancestor who brought a karate lineage called Miyagi-Do to Okinawa. He says his ancestor used to be a seaman, basically a fisherman. But one day, a terrible storm hit. The boat was tossed on the waves and the ancestor drifted all the way to China. And that's where the whole Miyagi-Do origin story begins. There, for some reason, a kind-hearted family decided to take him in. They were the Han family. And let me tell you, these people were genuinely nice. Not only did they give him a place to stay and some good, healthy food, but they also taught him the art of Kung Fu. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and finally, the time came for him to go back to Okinawa. And from that moment, the Miyagi-Do karate style was born, a fusion of two martial arts, karate and Kung Fu. All right, let's put that ancient story aside for now. Fast forward to the present day in the city of Beijing. At a local Kung Fu martial arts school, we see a middle-aged man who honestly kind of looks like Jackie Chan. His name is Uncle Han. Could he be one of the descendants of the same Han family who once helped Miyagi's ancestor? Who knows? Let's just keep going with the story.
Uncle Han's Kung Fu martial arts school was actually quite respected by the locals. Why, you ask? Well, turns out Uncle Han once single-handedly took down a bunch of thugs who used to control a big chunk of the market and parking lots in Beijing. Yeah, no wonder people respect him. Among all of Uncle Han's students, there was one who really stood out, a young man named Li Feng. He was Uncle Han's most talented and favorite student. And honestly, it's kind of obvious why. Li Feng wasn't just a student. He was also Uncle Han's nephew. Yup, turns out even in martial arts, a little bit of family connection goes a long way. Apparently, Li Feng's mother was related to Uncle Han.
One day, a woman showed up at Uncle Han's Kung Fu school. Turned out, it was Li Feng's mother. She came all the way there to tell Uncle Han that she wanted to take Li Feng with her to New York. And her reason? Pretty solid, actually. She had just gotten a job offer as a doctor in New York, and she didn't want her son to spend his life fighting around the streets of Beijing, especially after what happened to Li's older brother, who, sadly, died in a fight. Hearing that, Li Feng tried his best to convince his mom. He said he belonged here in Beijing, training under Uncle Han and mastering Kung Fu. But his mom? Yeah, she wasn't having it. She looked him straight in the eye and said, "Either you come with me to New York, or your allowance is gone." Well, guess what? Between chasing his dreams and losing lunch money, Li Feng chose the plane ticket. And just like that, he and his mom flew off to New York. When they finally arrived in New York, Li and his mom started looking for a place to live. After hours of searching, they finally found a tiny, simple apartment. Nothing fancy, but cozy enough. That night, Li's stomach began to growl. So he went out looking for food, hoping to find, some kind of street vendor selling fried rice or noodles. But nope, this is New York, my friend. The only thing you'll find on the street at midnight is hot dogs and trouble. Starving and desperate, Li stumbled into a small pizza shop called Victory Pizza. But instead of food, he got roasted by the cashier. Why? Because Li tried to order something that wasn't even on the menu. Yeah, his English was kind of broken, so he ended up stuttering his way through an awkward moment. Thankfully, the cashier's daughter, a cheerful girl named Mia, stepped in to help. She smiled and helped him order a slice of pepperoni pizza. And as Li finally took his first bite, Mia said with a grin, "Welcome to New York." The next morning, both of them went their separate ways. Li headed to school while his mom went to work. Just like any new kid on his first day, Li felt completely out of place. New faces, new language, new world, and absolutely no friends yet. After school, while walking home, Li saw Mia accidentally drop something. He quickly helped her pick it up, and that moment instantly reminded them of how they first met at the pizza shop a few days ago. So they decided to hang out a bit. Mia asked Li to come along and help her buy a spare part for her dad's broken pizza machine. While walking through the neighborhood, Li's eyes caught something. A big, flashy karate dojo called Demolition. But Mia quickly warned him, "Whatever you do, Li, stay away from that place." Of course, Li looked confused, but Mia continued, "My dad owes money to the guy who owns that dojo. His name's Oz. And trust me, those people in there, they're trouble." She paused for a second, then added, "Especially one of the students, a guy named Connor. Don't ever mess with him." At a spare parts store, Mia finally found what she was looking for. But the moment she saw the price tag, her jaw almost hit the floor. It was crazy expensive. Lucky for her, Lee was right there. And this dude turned out to be fluent in Mandarin. So, using his secret weapon, that smooth bargaining skill, Lee managed to talk the seller into dropping the price. Mia was stunned. Not only did she get the part she needed, but she also realized learning Mandarin could actually save her a lot of money. Imagine getting discounts every single day. So yeah, she asked Lee to teach her Mandarin. And of course, Lee agreed. But on one condition, there had to be a little trade-off. Mia quickly got what he meant. In return, she'd teach Lee all about life in New York City, the culture, the people, how to survive the chaos, and maybe how not to look like a lost tourist. Plus, she promised to show him around the city. And just like that, a new friendship was born. That night, back in their small apartment, Lee finally opened up to his mom. He told her he'd made his very first friend, a girl named Mia. His mom's reaction? Pretty flat. She just gave a little nod and said, "Well, I just hope you'll feel at home here." The next day, keeping her promise, Mia took Lee on a little tour around New York City. And guess what? They did it on this old, rusty motorcycle that looked like it had survived World War II. They rode through the city, laughing, singing, and just having fun like two carefree kids. Until, yep, you guessed it, the bike suddenly broke down right in the middle of the road. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then completely died. Probably because that poor thing hadn't been used in ages. So, what did they do? Well, they had no choice but to walk home, pushing that old motorcycle together, still laughing the whole way back. Carrying a broken-down motorcycle on the subway? Yeah, not exactly a walk in the park. And things got worse when they ran into Connor. Yep, that Connor, along with his whole gang. Turns out, Connor is Mia's ex-boyfriend. So yeah, you can guess what happens next. The moment he saw Mia with Lee, his jealousy level went straight through the roof. Connor tried to act cool, showing off in front of Mia, but honestly, he just looked like a total clown. Lee tried to ignore him, but when Connor started harassing Mia, Lee finally stepped in to defend her. Unfortunately, Connor didn't take that well. He punched Lee right in the face. Bam! Lee could have fought back, easily. But then, his mom's words echoed in his head. No fighting, no trouble. Remember, we're guests in this country. So, Lee just stood there, holding back. When they got home, Mia told Lee that Connor wasn't always like this. He used to be a good guy until he started training at Oz's dojo, and after winning a few big karate tournaments called Five Borough, he turned into a full-blown monster. Cocky, arrogant, and totally power-drunk.
Because of his bruises, Mia took Lee to meet her dad, a chill guy named Victor. And that's when Lee found out something hilarious. Victor was really good at using makeup. Like, I'm talking professional level skills here. With just a few brushes and a little powder, Victor managed to cover every single bruise on Lee's face like some kind of beauty wizard. Victor laughed and said, "Yeah, I used to get into fights too. And this is how it kept my mom from finding out." Man, like father-in-law material and a makeup artist, this guy's got range. But as smart as Victor's trick was, Lee still got busted. When his mom saw the faint bruises under the makeup, boom, total disappointment. She was furious. Not because of the bruise itself, but because Lee broke his promise not to fight while living with her. To make sure it never happened again, Lee's mom went full Tiger Mom mode. She immediately hired a private tutor named Johnny, hoping that with enough studying, Lee would forget about Kung Fu and focus on school instead. Yeah, good luck with that, Mom.
That night, Lee was rearranging his room when suddenly a wave of memories hit him. He remembered his older brother, Wee. Wee was the kind of big brother everyone wanted, patient, tough, and always looking out for Lee. One night, he taught Lee a special move, the legendary Dragon Kick. Yeah, the kind of move that sounds super cool, but in reality, Lee never really mastered it. Every time he tried, he either lost balance or almost kicked his own head. The next day, after school, things got messy again. Connor showed up, same smug face, same bad attitude. But this time, Lee had had enough. He wasn't going to be a punching bag anymore. In front of everyone, Lee decided to fight back. He unleashed every move he knew, punch, block, spin, and finally went for his secret weapon, the Dragon Kick. With a dramatic jump, Lee shouted and went for it. But Connor dodged like it was nothing. To him, that Dragon Kick looked more like a chicken kick. And just when things were about to get ugly, teachers came rushing in, breaking up the fight and dragging both of them straight to the principal's office. Yeah, that went well, huh?
Later that night, Lee was busy fixing Mia's old motorbike. Yeah, the same one that broke down yesterday. He was covered in grease, focused like a true mechanic, until, boom, trouble showed up. A bunch of thugs came out of nowhere. Turns out, they were sent by Oz to collect Victor's unpaid debts. And just like that, the calm night turned into total chaos. Victor tried to talk things out, but those guys weren't there to chat. Seeing Victor getting cornered, Lee didn't think twice. He jumped right in and started throwing punches. Boom! One down. Whack! Another one flies over the hood. For someone who promised not to fight, Lee was seriously kicking butt tonight. In just a few minutes, all of Oz's men were either on the ground or running for their lives. Victor was left speechless. His daughter's friend just saved him like a real kung fu hero. What a night!
At the pizza shop that night, Victor looked at Lee and said, "Hey kid, what was that move back there?" Lee just smiled and said, "That's called kung fu, sir." Victor's eyes went wide. He was so impressed. That move was fast, clean, and strong. So naturally, he begged Lee to teach him that kung fu. But not just for fun. Victor had a plan. He wanted to join a boxing tournament with a cash prize of dozens of dollars. Hey, for him, that was enough to pay off all his debts, including the one he owed to Oz. As they talked late into the night, Lee finally learned something surprising. Victor used to be a really talented boxer. He gave it all up when Mia was born, because for Victor, Mia wasn't just his daughter, she was his reason to live. Hearing that, Lee fell silent for a moment. Then he said softly, "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't teach you kung fu. I promised my mom I'd never fight again."
As time went by, Lee started to feel kind of bad. I mean, come on, Victor was Mia's dad. And yeah, Mia was the girl he totally had a crush on. So, one night, Lee finally picked up his phone and called his old master, Uncle Han. On the other side of the line, Uncle Han's voice sounded warm and calm. He said, "My students at the dojo really miss you, my boy. You should come back." But instead of answering, Lee just sighed and started to talk about Victor, how the guy wanted to learn kung fu, and how Lee wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. Then Uncle Han simply chuckled and said, "If your heart tells you to teach him, then teach him. Kung fu isn't just about fighting, it's about sharing your peace with others." Hearing that, Lee smiled, and right there, he finally made up his mind. He was going to teach Victor kung fu. After getting his master's blessing, Lee went straight to see Victor. That very same day, they began training together, starting with the basics, physical conditioning. Lee quickly noticed something. Victor was strong, like really strong. But yeah, agility, not so much. Let's just say age wasn't really on his side. While they were practicing, Mia suddenly showed up. And oh boy, she was not happy. She started yelling, telling her dad to stop fighting again. But Victor stood his ground and said, "This is the only way for us to pay off our debts." After a short pause, Mia sighed, glared at both of them, and said, "If anything happens to my dad, you're responsible." Then she stormed off, leaving both Victor and Lee speechless. In the following days, their training continued. But Victor, he started getting impatient. He complained, "I thought you were teaching me kung fu, not just making me do squats all day." Lee just smiled and said, "Whatever you're doing, that's kung fu." From stances to reflexes drills, and even defense moves using random stuff they found around the place, Lee made Victor train with whatever was available. Day by day, Victor started to improve. His balance got better, his punches got sharper, and his confidence through the roof. He wasn't just a pizza guy anymore. He was turning into a real fighter. And honestly, because of all that training time together, Lee and Mia started getting a lot closer too. You know what that means. One night, Lee just couldn't sleep. He quietly covered his mom with a blanket and snuck outside to train behind Victor's pizza shop. But guess what? Victor was still there. He saw Lee practicing alone and asked, "Couldn't sleep, huh?" Lee sighed and said, "I miss my brother." Then, boom, the truth came out. Lee told Victor everything about his older brother, a gifted fighter who once won a big kung fu tournament back in Beijing. But after that victory, his opponent wanted revenge. One night, Lee and his brother were ambushed, outnumbered, and one of them had a knife. Lee froze. He couldn't move. He could only watch as his brother was beaten and stabbed right in front of him. That's the moment everything changed. Since then, Lee's been carrying that guilt, and his mom, she banned him from ever practicing kung fu again. Victor tried to cheer Lee up. He told him, "The only way to overcome your trauma is to do something that would make your brother proud."
Then, the big night finally came, fight day. Lee gave Victor some last-minute advice before the match. When the bell rang, Victor had to adjust himself. It's been a long time since he stepped inside a boxing ring. At first, he struggled. His opponent was faster, stronger, totally dominating the fight. But with Lee's guidance from the corner, Victor started turning things around, dodging punches, countering clean shots, until finally, bam! His opponent hit the ground. The crowd went wild. It looked like Victor was going to win. But Oz couldn't stand seeing that. He ordered his fighter to cheat. And in the chaos, Victor got hit hard and went down, completely unconscious. Lee froze. That moment brought back the same nightmare, the same helpless feeling when his brother died. He just stood there, silent, trembling. And Mia? She was furious. Seeing Lee do nothing made her lose all hope. She shouted in anger, disappointed and heartbroken.
After Victor's defeat, Lee hit rock bottom. He threw away everything related to Kung Fu, his training gear, his old uniform, even his trophies. Uncle Han kept calling him, but Lee refused to answer. He just wanted to forget everything. That night, when Lee came home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. He looked around, no sign of his mom. And suddenly, bam! A shadow jumped out of nowhere and attacked him. Lee fought back out of pure instinct. The two exchanged blows, fast, precise, intense, until Lee managed to pin the attacker down. And when he looked closer, he froze. It was Uncle Han. Turns out, the old man had come all the way there, worried about his student, or, well, his stubborn nephew. Seeing Lee so broken, Uncle Han didn't scold him. He just smiled and said softly, "A warrior spirit doesn't die just because he falls once, Lee, and only sleeps, waiting for you to wake it up again."
The next day, Lee and Uncle Han went to visit Victor at the hospital. When they got there, Mia was already by her father's side, and yeah, she wasn't happy to see Lee. Victor tried to calm her down and explained everything, but the damage was done. Lee felt that sting deep inside. Later that night, Uncle Han talked with Lee about what happened, and then the old man came up with a crazy idea. He wanted Lee to sign up for the 5-borough tournament. 10 days. That's all the time Lee had to train. If he wins, the prize money would be enough to pay off all of Victor's debts. But for Uncle Han, that wasn't the real reason. He wanted Lee to fight again, not just for Victor, not even for Mia, but to fight for himself, to prove that the fire inside him still burns. And guess what? Lee's first opponent in that tournament would be none other than his old rival, Connor.
That night, Uncle Han went to see Lee's mom. He begged her, really begged her, to let Lee train again. Not for violence, but for honor, for the tournament. At first, Lee's mom said no, but after seeing how serious Uncle Han was, she finally gave her blessing. Yeah, that's a big win for Uncle Han. But here's the thing. To prepare for this tournament, Uncle Han didn't just teach Lee Kung Fu. Nope. He wanted Lee to become a complete fighter, one who understands not only Kung Fu, but also karate. And between us, Uncle Han actually felt a bit awkward with the movie title. Like, come on, the film's called The Karate Kid, but everything in it is Kung Fu? So, to keep the branding consistent, Uncle Han decided to visit a dojo called Miyagi-Do. Yep, the same place founded by Mr. Miyagi's ancestors. Oh, and just to be clear, Miyagi, not Miyabi, okay? Big difference. After paying his respects to his old friend's ashes, yeah, that's Mr. Mr. Miyagi, of course, Uncle Han finally steps inside the dojo. And guess who he meets? None other than Daniel LaRusso, the one and only student of the legendary Mr. Miyagi himself. Uncle Han came all the way here for a reason. He wanted Daniel's help to train his own student. He pleaded, saying this was for honor, and maybe a bit for nostalgia, too. Daniel listened and smiled. For the friendship between their masters, he agreed. He'd go to New York and help train Lee for the upcoming tournament. And just like that, two masters from different worlds are about to shape one unstoppable fighter. The next day, Uncle Han went all out. He trained Lee like a soldier in boot camp. No mercy, no excuses. Even though Lee was his beloved nephew. Lee was completely wrecked by those insane training sessions. I mean, Uncle Han literally built a wooden dummy just for him. Yeah, just like those old-school kung fu masters used to do. Watching it, you can't help but remember Wang Fei Hung from The Drunken Master. Then, the following day, Daniel finally arrived. He decided to lend a hand teaching Lee some karate-style techniques that totally clashed with kung fu movements. But Daniel being Daniel, he's a genius. He knew exactly which moves could be mixed with Lee's kung fu basics to create something new, something powerful. The problem is, Lee didn't quite get it yet. His brain was still trying to process whether he was supposed to punch, block, or dance. Eventually, Uncle Han realized something was off. Lee wasn't fully focused during training, and Uncle Han could smell it. This wasn't about technique. This was about love. He looked straight at Lee and said, "Come on, boy, just admit it." Finally, Lee confessed. He'd been thinking about Mia the whole time. Their relationship had fallen apart, all because of what happened that night when Mia's dad got hurt and Lee just froze, doing absolutely nothing. Hearing that, Uncle Han sighed deeply. "Okay, I get it," he said. "Now listen, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna order a pizza, send it to Johnny's place, and when Mia comes to deliver it, boom, you'll be there, waiting." Lee blinked, confused. "Uncle, that's your plan?" Uncle Han grinned. "Of course, nothing heals a broken heart like pizza and regret." And guess what? Uncle Han's plan actually worked. Mia showed up with the pizza, and there was Lee, standing there with the most pitiable face you've ever seen. Seeing him like that, Mia's heart instantly melted. She couldn't stay mad anymore. And just like that, the two finally made up.
And ever since that day, Lee's fighting spirit came back to life. He became laser-focused on the upcoming tournament. Every move Uncle Han and Sensei Daniel taught him, Lee observed it all like a hungry beast. It was like every punch, every kick was another step toward redemption. His improvement was insane, from clumsy rookie to a legit kung fu warrior. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Connor was also training, but in a very different way. His training was brutal, full of violence and zero mercy. Oz taught him every dirty trick in the book, from illegal punches to total chaos. Oz looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Forget about the points. Don't fight to win, fight to destroy. If you have to, send them straight to hell." Savage, right? And finally, the day of the 5 borrowed tournament had arrived. Both fighters were ready. The stage was set, and the crowd was going wild.
The tournament rules were simple. 8 points to win, 1 point for body hits, and 2 points for clean shots to the head. For the first round, Lee faced a guy named Buddha, and honestly, it was a piece of cake. Lee took him down in seconds. Meanwhile, Connor also crushed his opponents, but his style was way more brutal. Zero defense, full offense. That guy was built for chaos. Both Lee and Connor kept winning their matches until they reached the semi-finals. Lee's next match took place under a bridge, and yep, he dominated again. His mix of karate and kung fu was unstoppable. It was like watching Bruce Lee and Daniel LaRusso merge into a one unstoppable dude. But of course, seeing Lee's success made Connor furious, so he ordered his buddies to take Lee out before the finals. Big mistake. They didn't realize Lee was being protected by 2 absolute legends, Uncle Han and Sensei Daniel. And bro, those 2 hadn't fought in ages, so when the thugs attacked, they were like, "Oh, finally, a warm-up." And the result? Total destruction. The goons got wrecked so bad, they probably unsubscribed to violence forever. After that, Lee's teachers decided to train him even harder for the final match against Connor. But here's the problem. Uncle Han and Sensei Daniel started arguing about whose fighting style was the best. And poor Lee ended up becoming their punching bag. He got tossed around like a ragdoll until he finally yelled, "Time out! Please, I still need my bones for the final!" One day, Sensei Daniel asked, "So Lee, tell me, what's Connor's fighting style like?" Lee replied, "Connor fights with pure power, Sensei. When I faced him before, it felt like fighting a wild tiger. I used my best move, the dragon kick, but he read my motions so easily, it was like he knew exactly what I'd do before I did it." Hearing that, Daniel's eyes lit up. He suddenly got an idea. If Connor fights like a tiger, he said, then the only way to beat him is to trap the tiger. Lee blinked in confusion. Trap the tiger? How? Daniel smirked. Simple. We'll use your dragon kick as bait. Lee's jaw dropped. My dragon kick, but that move doesn't even work. That's the point, Daniel said confidently. When Connor thinks he's seen the same attack before, he'll drop his guard, and that's when you strike. Uncle Han, who had been listening nearby, nodded proudly and added, Yes, Lee, remember Kung Fu is not just about strength, it's about patience and timing. Lee smiled and said, Then let's trap the tiger.
The next training took place deep inside a subway entrance. Yeah, a literal underground spot. There, Lee was training to master his signature move, the dragon kick. But this time, Daniel made it even harder. He added a brand new combo move designed to confuse Connor during the big fight. At first, poor Lee struggled like crazy. He kept hitting his head on the metal bars every time he tried that spinning move. According to Daniel, that only meant one thing. He needed harder training. So, Daniel and Uncle Han came up with a genius plan. They decided to buy a rickshaw. Yep, Lee would now train his leg strength by pulling passengers around like a street driver. And bro, you should have seen him sweating, panting, dragging that thing up and down the street like his life depended on it. But despite the pain, he kept going because deep down, he knew this was the only way to win. After weeks of suffering, Lee finally nailed it. He performed the dragon kick combo flawlessly, spinning through the subway gate like a flying ninja. He did it!
And finally, the big day had arrived. The 5-borough tournament was about to begin. And guess what? Lee's mom actually showed up to watch him fight this time. She looked so proud, cheering from the stands like her son was entering the Olympics. Before the match started, Daniel handed Lee a special headband, the legendary Miyagi Do headband. He said, "This was a gift from Master Miyagi, and I wore it in every fight I ever had." The design showed a bonsai tree, a symbol of balance between two martial arts, karate and kung fu. Anyone who wore it would look like a warrior descending from the mountain. But honestly, Lee looked more like a street hot dog vendor than a kung fu master. Still, Daniel said it was all about the spirit, not the style. And then a crowd went silent. The referee stepped into the ring. The drums started beating. The final tournament was about to begin. The match was packed. Thousands of people filled the arena, including Victor, Mia, and of course, the one and only Johnny. Everyone's eyes were locked on the ring. Same rules as before, first to 8 points wins. And then the fight began. Right from the start, Connor came out swinging like a raging bull who just skipped breakfast. Lee was caught off guard, getting hit by a barrage of punches and kicks. Ouch, that one's gonna leave a mark. For a moment, he looked completely overwhelmed. But Lee wasn't done yet. He took a deep breath, focused his mind, and suddenly the tables turned. The scoreboard lit up 4-4. The crowd went wild. Connor started to lose his cool. But just when Lee thought he had the upper hand, Connor came back with another wave of brutal attacks. Punch after punch, bam, bam, bam. And then a spinning kick straight to the back of Lee's head. He dropped to the mat. The referee began the count. 1, 2, 3. It looked like it might be over. But on the 9th count, Lee stood back up. He refused to let history repeat itself. The fight was back on, and the arena went absolutely nuts.
And now, it all comes down to this, the final point. Lee takes a deep breath and remembers his master's words. The only way to defeat the tiger is to trap it. So, he steps forward, ready to unleash his famous dragon kick. Connor smirks. He remembers that move. He broke it once before. Piece of cake, he thinks. But this time, he's wrong. Lee's dragon kick was only a trick, a perfect bait. Connor took it, and boom, Lee flipped the tables. With one swift motion, he struck Connor right where it hurts, sending him flying and totally off balance. And for the grand finale, Lee channels the spirit of Uncle Han, the one-finger kick. Bam! Connor hits the mat, completely defeated. The crowd erupts in cheers. Lee did it! He actually tamed the tiger! But wait, it's not over yet. Connor, being the sore loser he is, tries one last cheap shot. But Lee, trusting his instincts, dodges it easily. And with a smooth combo of pure karate moves, he knocks Connor down for good. Sensei Daniel stands up, clapping proudly. He used my move. Uncle Han smiles. Well, maybe just a little bit of mine, too.
Just when Lee was about to land a final dangerous blow on Connor, Uncle Han shouted, "Lee, don't do it!" That one sentence stopped him cold. Lee suddenly realized this fight wasn't about revenge. It was about honor. So instead of finishing Connor, he helped him up and forgave him. "It's just a friendly match," he said. And right there in front of everyone, Lee showed what true martial arts spirit really means. That moment completely shattered Master Oz's reputation. The guy known for teaching dirty fighting and twisted lessons. Yeah, karma just kicked him right in the face.
Lee was crowned the new 5-borough champion. Both Uncle Han and Sensei Daniel couldn't hide their pride. After all those brutal training sessions finally paid off. They didn't just create a fighter, they created a true martial artist. And guess what? From his hard-earned victory, Lee won $200,000 in cash. But instead of spending it, he gave it all to Victor to pay off his debts and restart his pizza business. What a guy. I mean, come on, anything for your future father-in-law, right?
On the other side of the story, Lee sent a pizza to his karate master, Sensei Daniel. Inside the box was a photo of their victory at the tournament, along with a heartfelt message that said, "Thank you for everything, Sensei." That single gesture showed how much Lee respected the man who helped him rise again. And just like that, the story comes to an end. The real message here is simple. To overcome trauma and the lowest point in your life, you don't need to fight alone. Find a friend, share your pain, and if you're lucky, that person might just become your soulmate. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, bye!